why are we here? So today we are talking about obviously protecting your wealth from tax fraud and scams. So I'm going to ask everybody in the room and those online, what percentage of scams happen during the first quarter of the year, would you say? If you had to guess. Okay, so we have 75, 70%, any 80%, 50. I feel like I'm like an auctioneer. What am I selling? Any guesses online? That is, I think I know who put that number on there. If you can hear me, thank you for attending. You know who you are. That is not the correct answer. So it's 61%. 61% of all tax fraudulent activities happen during the first quarter of the year. And of them, 13% actually show a loss of money at some point, which is also why we're having this topic during this time, because it's of the highest risk of the whole entire year. Earlier well, not this week, it's only Tuesday, so this would have been last week. A friend of mine called me, and she was in a complete panic. She said, I had a message on my phone, and they said my debit card was hacked, and it was from my bank. I called them, and I want to make sure I didn't give too much information, and I need your advice as to what I should do to protect my credit, because I'm worried now. And I asked her to tell me the whole story, what happened, and she said they looked me up online, they couldn't find me. They sent me to their fraud department to look me up, and they said they were able to find me. They just need to confirm some information. And at that point, she just wasn't quite sure. She didn't foreclose any of her information. She did a good job, but this is somebody that I would say is above average intelligence, and she was that close from giving away her social security number, right? And they have a young family. A lot would have been on the line if she gave that up. And she did the right thing, and she asked us for advice as to what her next steps would be. I'm not going to tell you what those next steps would be, because that is the job of our presenters. So just sit tight for a minute and you'll get some answers. But it just goes to show how easy it can happen, right? We all have those messages on our phones. We all get those emails. We all get those links to click, except if they come from Amelia, then you want to click those. It's a very vulnerable state, and they're getting really good. So why are we at John Allman & Associates talking on this topic? So we are, for those of you that don't know, we are comprehensive wealth managers. Most of the time, your money manager is not going to be up here talking about tax fraud topics. Well, the reason why we're able to do that is because we're comprehensive in the most comprehensive definition of the word. We try to help our clients with every single thing money touches, including their security. To become a client, we manage assets, and that anchors the relationship. From there, our clients then receive just an amount of servicing that is hard to come by these days. And that's how we protect and retain our clients, by educating them through topics like this. Anything money touches, we're here to help. We want to be that first call for you. Now, who is here today to do the presentation? Not sure. I got to click over here, don't I? Where's the clicker? I'm sorry. Mr. Jason. So Jason Nickerson, he's CFP and EA. EA is an enrolled agent. That is it's a tax accreditation, right? Which is what gives him the ability to babble in front of us today. He is our executive vice president. He is our chief operating officer, and he is our next in line. It's truly an honor to have him here. He's been here for 20-something years, 25 years in just a few days. That's awesome. Well, who's counting?
Still counting.
So he's going to start the presentation by scaring us, and then he's going to hand it over to Andrew, who's going to give us some answers, essentially. So Andrew, have you been here 6 years? 5 years? Okay, almost 6. So Andrew, he's also CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, and he is also an enrolled agent, and that's why he's also able to talk on this topic. He is our one of our senior associate advisors, and just one of our rock stars at the firm, one of our up and comings. For those of you that follow us online, there's a number of ways that you can engage with us. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook. We offer a ton of content to help with individuals on any financial matter that we're able to give advice on. And we're able to do that primarily because we don't sell any products. We're able to actually act as a fiduciary. So any advice that we give, there is no angle to it. It is true advice. Now, the reason why we're actually all here, so I can read this disclaimer to you, because we have to, because that's the world that we live in. So before we get this party started, the information discussed in this webinar is current as of the date noted and is for informational purposes only and does not contend to address the financial objectives, situation, and specific needs of any individual investor. Any information is for illustrative purposes only and is not intended to serve as investment, legal, or tax advice, since the availability and effectiveness of any strategy is dependent upon your individual facts and circumstances. Results will vary, and no suggestion is made about how any specific solution or strategy will perform in reality. You may now go home. Please enjoy the snacks on your way out. That is exhausting. Without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Jason now. And if you're online, remember to engage with us with the questions we have there. Open up the survey and the e-brochure that we have available to you. We will circle back around to reference the items in there. But Jason, take it away.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Will. Thank you all that decided to come here physically tonight. Thank you all that are attending online. Just to make sure I'm coming through loud and clear, just a couple of questions. How many have attended any of our sessions before, either online or in person? So we got a couple in the room. Oh, I hope, Andrew, you have. I know you presented before. Tom and Karen, I think it's a mandate at this point. A couple raised hands. Okay, so it means everyone can hear me. Good. Which also means either we've given good information or we haven't sufficiently scared you off yet. So stay tuned, because that's going to be my attempt this evening. How many, just by show of hands, and again, do this again for me online, how many file returns by mail or on paper? Still file your tax returns on paper? Got one here in the room. Anybody online? Well, let's try a different one. How about e-file? How many e-file their tax returns? Okay, majority. Anybody online e-file? Okay, 2 raised hands. So that means the rest just don't bother filing taxes in general, which is another option. That falls into the fraud category. Of those that e-file, that have raised your hands for e-file, how many of you would go back to paper filing if you could? Maybe? Anybody online? Okay. Couple no's. Okay. Okay. All right. How many, again, well, another question. How many try to receive as many of those tax documents that you use to prepare your return? How many try to receive as many of those electronically as you can? Anybody attempting to do that? Okay. Sure. Okay. Another question. How many are feeling like this guy right here, right about now? Maybe a little extra exposed during this time of year. We're going to go over why you might be feeling like this guy. Last question. How many of you would like me to stop asking you questions and actually get to some real information? All right. Here's why you might start feeling like my friend the stick guy. Let's take a look at why we might feel a little extra exposed this time of year. What I have up on the screen is a sample W-2, and what do you see on there that might cause you a little concern? Social Security number. What else? We got name, we got address, we've got income, we got the state you live in, and this is the kind of thing that's coming through the mail, right? They're mailing these things to you. Now, institutions and employers with the Social Security number, we're getting better about reducing that down to the last 4 digits, right? But not everybody has done that. Let's look at another form. Okay, if you don't get a W-2, here's a 1099 INT you might get from your bank. Okay, what are some of the red flags on this one? Social Security number again, yeah. Yep. They know what you're investing in.
With that much interest, you got a lot of money in the bank.
Got a lot of money in the bank. Here's one of my favorites. They got your account number down here. So we are growing in information. Amelia, we got a question back there or comments? Yep. How much money you're making? Exactly. Anyone who didn't raise their hand about feeling uncomfortable right now, you're feeling uncomfortable yet. This is the stuff that's going through the mail, right? And it's not just going through the mail, right? So it's coming in envelopes that look like this, right? Sometimes with a window that's got your name. But here's another one of my favorites. Big red letters, tax information enclosed, all right? Here, come open me, okay, is what they're saying, okay? Come open this envelope. And that's the type of envelope, and they're secure envelopes, but you know, they put the stamp on the outside. All right, now you've collected all these tax documents, right? They've come in the mail or they've come digitally. And now you're gonna put them on a form that looks like this, okay? Now let's talk about what information do we see here that might cause the hairs on the back of your neck to stand up a little bit. Especially if you mail it. Everything, name, address, social security numbers. Guess what? If you're reporting kids, you got your kids' names, social security number, how they're related to you or other dependents, right? And that's the IRS form 1040. Who files New York State returns? Show of hands. Anybody online filing New York State returns? Got a few? Okay, good. Oh, someone calling in to chime in on that one. Good. Okay, let's, yeah. Here's a New York State return. Now, because this is hard to see, we've got a lot of the same information, name, address, socials. New York State in all of its brilliance, right down here, just below our names and socials, they feel like you should be putting your dates of birth in there as well. Okay, that's going on the form now, right? So you've got, actually it's right here, it's right next to your name. Your date of birth, spouse's date of birth. So now, someone who decides to open that tax return has a lot of your information. Okay, well, technology around the envelope has come a long way, right? So if you're mailing your tax return, they make secure envelopes, right? So I need a volunteer here in the room. Who wants to help me with something? Anybody? You can stay right where you are. All right, Luann, why don't you take a look at that? Can you tell me who that's addressed to? IRS. The IRS, okay, good. That's test number one, you passed. You can have another brownie if you'd like. Can you look in there? Anything in the envelope? No. And can you see through the envelope if I hold it right here? Okay, good, good. This is not a magic trick. I do have things up my sleeve. Let's put our tax return in there, which has all this information, okay? Let's put that in the envelope, and we're gonna drop that in the mail, okay? Yes, I'm gonna grossly lick this thing. Okay. Now, would you say that's pretty sealed, right? Okay. So we can drop this in the mail. We can't see through it, right? And our information's in there. And we feel really good about it, right? Because opening someone else's mail is a federal offense, isn't it? It's a crime, right? Okay. So I'm the person that might pick up your mail. I might be someone else. And let me show you how secure this is. Okay, right? So we don't feel all that secure anymore because now I have everything. And if I am that type of person, do I care? Also, let me let you know that as we file or we use technology, it's also a federal offense to steal anybody's information digitally as well, okay? So we tend to get comforted by this long-term belief that just because there's such thing as federal offense to open someone else's mail, we don't think about it now digitally, okay? Thank you for your help with my experiment. You passed. Now let me read you a real life example. I'm going to paraphrase some of this. This is an advisor helping a client, And just recently, our advisor said, you need to make an estimated tax payment. Now, does everyone know what an estimated tax payment is? Okay. These are payments that are a way to pay your tax on a quarterly basis versus withholding or some other way. Okay. So our advisor said to the client, you need to make a fourth quarter tax payment. And the client wrote a large check to the IRS, mailed it from the post office, decided that would be more secure to take it to the post office instead of dropping it in the blue box on the corner, okay? Or handing it to the mail person. Their bank called them and told them that some person had gotten the check, had altered the payee information to look like a name, and tried to deposit the check electronically through a mobile deposit app. The bank caught it, luckily, and called them immediately. Great bank, right? Great customer service. And now they're having to close the checking account, open new checking account, and go through a bunch of fraud prevention, okay? So why do I tell you all this? Well, because mail and digital, we still have to be very careful, right? Will gave some interesting statistics. I'm going to give you a few more. In 2021, roughly 5.8 million taxpayers fell victim to tax-related scams. And that is roughly a 400% increase over recent years before that. The problem is that the IRS is estimating these numbers because it's hard to understand what is truly tax scams and fraud versus any other tax scam and fraud. And why is that? Because they're really after two things, right? They're fraudsters, criminals, they're just looking to get a hold of two things. The first one, PII, which is gold. That is your personal identifiable information, okay? Name, dates of birth, social security number, address, prior addresses, etc. And they're looking for money, okay? And if they find the PII, they can usually find some money behind it. But Andrew's going to talk about a way or some other things that tend to happen with tax returns that create money directly. So the two most common frauds that we have to be very, very careful of in this realm are phone and email phishing. And we're going to go through a couple examples, but there's a third one, and that is people filing returns on behalf of other people. Okay, what is that? That is, if you've ever gotten this call before, that is, or a letter from the IRS saying someone's already filed your return for you. And so now we've got to try and remedy that. So let's go through, how many have ever received a phone call claiming they're the IRS? Couple. Anybody online, Amelia? No one yet? Okay, well, let's go through one. Will you hit play on that for me? Let's take a listen to what these sound like, because they actually sound pretty official.
To reach you. This call is officially a final notice from IRS. Internal Revenue Services. The reason of this call is to inform you that IRS is filing lawsuit against you. To get more information about this case file, please call immediately on our department number 253-214-4667. I repeat 253-214-4667. Thank you.
Okay, how about emails? Anyone ever received an email that looks like it came from the IRS? Boy, you've run the gambit. So let's look at a couple of the IRS. So let's look at a couple. This one I got from CBS News. After the last annual calculations of your fiscal activity, interesting wording, we have determined that you are eligible for a tax refund. Sounds like a Monopoly game. You can pass go still, and you get to collect a refund. And this one comes under Section 501C, Section 17. I didn't look up to see if that was real, but 501C, that's related to charities. Of the Internal Revenue Code, please submit the tax refund request form, and it's hyperlinked, so they just want you to click that and fill out a few things, of course, name, address, social security number, date of birth, and your bank account. And they'll kindly put that right in there for you. And if you believe that, I got another one for you here. Claim your tax refund online. We identified an error in the calculation of your tax from the last payment amounting to $419.95, pretty exact. And if you want to get that, you just got to get started by clicking that little link right there, okay? And this one came from Norton. the security company, online security company. So lots of ways that we're trying to get personal identifiable information, trying to get you to click links, trying to collect. And as Will said, I'm going to turn this over to our tonight's white knight in shining armor, riding in on his horse to solve all of these problems for us, right, Andrew? Yep.
Okay, now that Jason, sufficiently got you guys riled up, let's talk about what we can maybe do to protect ourselves. So the IRS has a program where it's called an IP PIN, and it's an extra piece of information that goes along when you submit your tax return. It's a 6-digit number, and it basically prevents anyone from filing your tax return without having this number. So it kind of works like a 2-factor authentication with your phone. If you're on vacation, you're trying to sign with your bank, you might get a text message for a code, kind of same thing. So that you apply for an IP PIN from the IRS. It lasts for 12 months for 1 calendar year, and only you can fill it out. So similar to the 2-factor authentication, it only lasts for 12 months. You get a text message on your phone, maybe it lasts for an hour, 15 minutes. The code only lasts for a year, and you have to reapply the next year. So which is to your benefit. So if someone were to get this code, it's old. You can't reuse it. You have to use a new one in the future. It's really easy to register. The IRS has a program called ID.me. You go to the website, it takes you about 5 to 10 minutes, and you'll just submit your identifying information, name, birthday. You'll need a government ID, such as a driver's license, passport. And the thing I think is funny is you need to take a selfie, which is the official language in the IRS website. So we know that it's not cool language anymore if it's on a government website. But after that process, you'll get a code generated, and then you have your IP PIN. If you have a spouse, they will have a separate PIN than you will. So if only one person wants to do it, it doesn't necessarily affect both spouses, but both of you can apply. So what else can we do to protect ourselves? Something that's simple to do is file early. You can only file your taxes once without doing an amended return. So once it's submitted, no one can go in and make any changes without doing it, like I said, an amended return. And people sometimes get nervous with taxes because they don't want to make that payment if they think they owe, but filing and paying taxes are actually separate. You can go ahead, file your payments, wait until the due date, and make your payment separately. So don't let the payment put you off of filing your taxes on time or early if you can. Another way to protect yourself is to apply your refund to the next year's tax return. So what are fraudsters looking for? They're looking for your return. That's why they're applying, or they're filing your tax return to get your refund or a fraudulent refund. But if you apply your refund to next year's tax liability, this can't be changed. So even if someone were going to try and scam you, this is already applied. It's set. You can't make any changes. So you do need to be aware if you were looking for this, because this can be a big windfall for people. But you want to make sure that you apply it. So if you apply your old tax refund, you can also want to be sure to adjust any current withholding or estimated payments, since that will change your tax liability in the future. So one of the things is most scams really come from human error. And some of those calls prey on us as humans, but what they don't necessarily do is know what the IRS is actually going to do. So the best way to protect ourselves is to educate ourselves in what is normal protocol, and if things stray away from that, we'll maybe know that we're being scammed. So the IRS will not demand gift certificates. They want money to the US Treasury. They don't want an Amazon gift card. You'll never receive a text message, and the IRS will never contact you via any social media. They will not slide into your DMs. That is not the preferred method of the IRS. IRS is an old institution. They like snail mail. Almost 100% of the time, that is the first way they will contact you is regular old envelope. Another thing that I think is a good piece of information to keep in mind is they'll never demand payment without asking for an appeal. So they'll give you an option to appeal the decision. They're never saying this is 100% true. They give you an option that they made a mistake. So anyone that is demanding something without giving you an option to appeal it should set off a red flag. IRS made some news that there were IRS agents that had guns, and the IRS is their own enforcement agency. They will never contact any local police. They're not going to get the SWAT team out, Homeland Security. They're not coming. The IRS will come themselves. And similarly, they won't let you know. In the rare instance that they do show up for a collection, they will not let you know in advance. They will just show up. So if someone is letting you know the IRS is on their way, that's a scam. They're not going to tell you. If they do show up, there are two different IDs that you can request to see. One is an IRS issued called a Pocket Commission card, and the other is a standard HSPD 12 card. You can ask to see both of them. People also get nervous that the IRS will revoke their licenses, driver's license, business, or immigration. These IRS does not have authority over and therefore cannot revoke. So anyone threatens you with that, that is not the IRS. They'll talk a little bit about paper and online payments with Jason. And a lot of that is just comfort, right? A lot of us are comfortable with checks because we've been doing it for a number of years. But as Jason physically demonstrated, it's not necessarily secure. E-filing and online payments might be less comfortable because it's a new process. Maybe have done it less, but doesn't mean it's any less secure. And it's something we can grow into. And it is a federal crime to steal mail. So the way you can pay directly to the IRS is this direct pay, the irs.gov. You can link it directly with your bank account, and you can even use a credit card. It's a secure transaction between you and the Treasury. The nice thing, I also think is a good perk, is you can do a same-day transaction. If you suddenly realize, oh no, I didn't make that check out today, and I'm not going to be able to get the mail, you can sign online and make the payment directly and not have any penalties. So we brought in a director of operations quote just to get his opinion on the difference between e-filing and paper. And so I'll read this to everyone. So when using proper authorized means of electronically filing tax returns, it is more secure than traditional paper filing. Electronic filing is delivered near instantaneously using industry-level encryption to keep prying eyes out. Paper filing is susceptible to delays, being lost, or opened by unauthorized individuals, as we saw.
In the front row.
Thank you for your help. And I did have to confirm that, we as professionals, when we file taxes, we're obviously using industry-level encryption, but this is true across the board. So even as an individual, when you are filing your taxes electronically, is always this top-level encryption. What else can you do to protect yourself? Well, you can work with a professional. One of the things we do is when our clients have a concern, they give us a call, and we do the research on their behalf. For taxes, there's a specific form called a 2848, which gives the power to talk to the IRS on your behalf, negotiate payments or anything else. So especially if you get maybe a piece of mail that you think is possibly true, but not, you can pass it up to your professional and we can handle it for you. So exactly, Do you want to know if it's a legitimate inquiry or a scam? Professional can help you make that decision. It's just another layer of protection besides all the other ones I listed, including the IP PIN, filing early, and applying your refund to your next year's tax liability. And with that, any questions? Hopefully feel a little bit better after mine from Jason's.
So I have a question. I received a text while we're sitting here. You spoke of ways to make sure that your tax refund is protected by forwarding it to the future returns. Are there any other options that are safe for, other places that you can put your tax refund? I guess is the gentleman's question, outside of just forwarding it to the future returns.
Well, this is a little opinionated, but I would say a perfect tax return would be that you had a zero liability and a zero refund, where you perfectly did your liability, because a refund is essentially an overpayment. And so you gave a tax-free loan to the government all year. And then owing, a lot of people just don't psychologically, but writing a big check at the end of the year. So trying to narrow down your liability through estimated tax payments and withholding. And this is something we might do with our clients maybe halfway through the year, especially towards the end of the year. Get that number as close to zero as you can in both directions, so that there's no difference. You don't have to worry about either applying or paying a check.
I will add to that one comment is, if you are e-filing your return, and we talk about industry level encryption, I mean, we're talking about the highest level of security when transmitting electronically. There is an option to do direct deposit of your refund to your bank account. And this is relatively secure in our opinion, again, because you're using the industry level encryption to file your return to begin with, okay? If you're paper filing your return, that is one more piece of personally identifiable information that's now sitting on the tax return, is the bank ABA number, they call it, a routing number, and your account number. And that ABA number can easily be used to see which bank you bank at, right? You can look that up. That's pretty public information. So then direct deposit or even direct withdrawal is an option too of your tax liability. You can directly withdraw that from the bank, and that will be fairly secure as well.
Is bill pay, is there a way to pay a tax payment to either the state or federal?
Bill pay in the sense of using your bank to send the check. If they're sending a check on your behalf, if you've ever seen one of those checks, it does have the bank, but it does have your name on it as well.
And also your Social Security.
Yeah, it has a lot of information on it. So just Andrew, yeah, it could be. I mean, Andrew pointed out some of this is comfort level, right? So there is options for both federal and states to direct pay through their website, through their secure portal and things like that, versus check mailing. But again, check mailing, if you have a good bank, as the example I posed, they're likely to catch any tampering with the check.
You had a question too, right?
That was
Oh, that was a question.
Question online. The question is it worth the money to have a paid Experian account to track possible fraud activities or your personal information?
Start and then okay, sure. I'll start with this one. My favorite thing to do with credit reporting agencies is freeze your credit. Don't pay for anything, that's free. And the reason is, and I'll get to the tracking of credit. It has now gotten so easy to freeze and unfreeze your credit. You can do it from your cell phone, you can do it from laptop or computer or anything like that. And not only after you set your freeze, if you do need to unfreeze it because there's a credit check coming that you can unfreeze it a day and tell it when to automatically refreeze it. So you don't have to remember to go back in and refreeze at that point in time. Now, credit monitoring, okay, so this is keeping an eye on what's going on, right? So that credit freeze won't allow more accounts to be open. Credit monitoring, you are allowed, as mandated by the federal government, to run your credit report one time per year from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies, okay? Our advice is do not run all 3 at one time. This allows you to essentially run your credit report 3 times a year. And they should all have the same information. So run Experian, say today, and 4 months from now run Equifax, and 4 months from then run TransUnion. And now you'll have a check and a look at your credit report 3 times a year, any fraudulent accounts open or things not being reported correctly. Probably the best way to interact with the credit reporting agencies.
Another question that I had that came in on my phone was consolidating all of your information when it is tax season. You get all these emails, you get all these notifications. Is there a vault of sort that you advise to put these documents in or these links in, other than just having them sit in your inbox? Is there any software out there that you find useful, or a portal of some sort?
I have to admit, I have a paper file of everything.
So if you trust, this is a big if you trust cloud-based services, you know, there are good ones out there. I wouldn't recommend, this is a major comfort level. I know people that store everything digitally, and then there's the people like Andrew, and I know others in this room that have everything on paper. So that, no, there's no recommended source. What I will tell you in terms of transmitting the information, if you're transmitting to your accountant and you want to do that digitally, you want to ask about specific client portal or secure mail transmission. Do not just email these things out into the world, okay? And expect it to go secure. Use some sort of encrypted delivery method that the accountant should be able to provide.
I expect it to move more and more in that direction over the next 10 years and essentially phased out though.
Does anybody have any stories where you avoided tax fraud, or you got a call that you almost became victim of, or anything like that that you're willing to share with the group? Especially, let me get you on the mic real quick and not walk in front of the camera.
Yeah, so someone actually filed an unemployment compensation insurance claim on my behalf. That was very nice of them.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of the money, but I had to pay the taxes on it, but I had to work through a fraud claim, which took a very long time, probably over a year, and a lot of phone calls and a lot of time. So it's really difficult when somebody does that.
Yeah. How long did that take you, roughly start to finish?
Probably 15 months, with a lot of threats from New York State and IRS that you have to pay the taxes.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else have any stories, scare stories to share? The guy that prints his taxes up in the front.
So when I was a young financial advisor who didn't know a lot about taxes, I got a call from an IRS agent letting me know that the police were on their way and I owed lots of money. But the thing I get hung up on was I just changed locations, and I was like, which house are they going to? And they couldn't answer me where they were going. And suddenly I realized that I think the IRS would know where I was, and I was able to avoid it.
That's awesome. We have another story in the back.
I have a family member who received a call from their bank, and the bank said that they got a phone call where somebody was asking for to take money out of their account. They had my family member's name, their social security number, all the information you would need. But since my bank, they had really good customer service, and I'm from a really small town, they thought something was not quite right. So they called my family member and just to confirm that everything was straight. And that's how they avoided it, was because they actually called to double check rather than just sending it off on their way.
One vote for small towns. Has anyone, here's going back to the credit monitoring, has anyone received, you know, that letter in the mail from a company that says that they may have had a breach and, you know, your information might be out there and we're offering the free credit monitoring? Has anyone had that? Yeah, we've had that. So here's my advice on that. Again, it's a matter of opinion. I often tell people don't sign up for the service, okay? Because if you've gotten a number of these, you have to give them a certain amount of information. Okay, that's danger one, right? You're giving another company yet another piece of information Okay, and it's for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. And if for these monitoring, if you understand how they work, like a LifeLock or something like that, they need that information to effectively monitor what's going on with your credit or your accounts and things like that. So you have to give that up, number one. Number two, you have to remember that to cancel it, right? So this is like an opt-in, and if then they'll start billing you after a year or two if you don't opt out or cancel this stuff, right? And one of my favorite stories is LifeLock. Everyone's probably heard the name LifeLock before, right? And when that first came about, the founder dared people to breach his credit, right? To steal his information. He put his social security number up on billboards and on the sides of trucks. Well, guess what? He got hacked, right? Someone did it. So went back, fixed a bunch of things, and he said he dared everybody again in the whole world, put his social security number up again, and they did it again. So it shows that these services are not impenetrable either, right? There was just one in the news, we get asked a lot, should I use a password keeper? And I am anti-password. I do a lot of things online that others might not, but I do not keep passwords in a password keeper, especially to bank accounts or investment accounts, things like this. Because in the news, New York Times reported that one just got breached and all the sensitive passwords are in there. So you just have to be super, super diligent and be careful of these add-on services that, as you were asking, Will, kind of bring things all together in a nice, neat package for you. That's not always necessarily the best thing.
What about LifeLock? I mean, is that a worthwhile thing to do?
So again, you'd have to give them a lot of information. I've tested it personally, and the amount of information, they're willing to monitor a lot of things, but you have to give them all the information to do it. You have to give them they're at their highest level, you have to even give them the login to your bank accounts, your credit card statements, so they can pull the information. And the way it works is they pull the transactions and they alert you and say, oh, we found a transaction we're not sure was you. Did you do this?
So actually I have LifeLock.
Mm-hmm.
So if I cancel it, how do they still have all that information?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so again, my favorite advice to give is make sure your credit is frozen, make sure you're monitoring your credit reports, and set up, as Andrew said, so a lot of credit cards will have alerts and things like that and do some monitoring for you as well. And it is a little more work because you kind of have to do some of it on your own, but you're not then giving out information to someone that you might not be comfortable with. And remember, I'm the scare guy in all this. I'm going to tell you the bad news, and Andrew is the knight in shining armor and tell you everything's going to be okay.
I was going to ask if Andrew wanted to share. For those of you that don't know, he was a part of an earlier presentation we had up here at JGUA on cybersecurity. And he did this whole entire discussion on trusting your instincts. If it doesn't feel right, pause, ask for help. Right. For those of you that weren't able to attend, I believe we have that online. We can share that if need be. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but you have this whole thing on just trust your instincts. If you don't know, don't try. I'll stop talking because I'm giving away all your good lines.
I guess it's part of the process of that. In this part was what the IRS will not do. It's knowing what to expect, what is actually going to happen, or what's in the realm of possible things that are happening versus what's not going to happen. So exactly, if it ever feels funny to hesitate, the big thing scammers are trying to do is to make you nervous so that you start acting and not thinking about what's happening. That's how they get him. That's most scams work in that process. Make you alarmed, so you're in a panic. Now you're going to fork over all the stuff that you wouldn't if you were actually thinking reasonably. So always just take your time. That's why I wanted to point out that the IRS will let you know, we think you owe $5 million, but you can appeal it. So, it's kind of good to know because a scammer isn't going to give you that out, so to speak. So, anytime it doesn't feel wrong, anytime you're being pressured unnecessarily, if you ever feel like you're being bullied or targeted, those are more likely a scammer than an IRS agent.
If they mention you have to put the money in crypto, pump the brakes for a second.
They only want US dollars 100% of the time.
Yeah, there you go. Any other stories or questions?
Anybody at home have
password protection or password online password safe or whatever you call it, the
Well,
password system.
all iPhones have a password manager. I mean, you kind of I think Android does too. So I think most modern cell phones kind of default you into that unless you strictly opt out of it. One of the things in the last presentation is it's having a master password that's complicated. And, it used to be, we think that means lots of complicated different digits and things, but length is really the determining factor. So a sentence that you can remember is just as complicated as something that looks like just, hitting random keys.
I think one of the biggest takeaways is it's okay to not know a lot of this information and looking for, signs of what to do and what not to do. And that's why it's important to form good relationships and having a good network around you. So then if you come across a situation where you don't know, you have somebody to call. With our firm, that's where we pride ourselves in, because we try to position ourselves to be that first phone call for any situation. So like that gentleman with the pretty blue eyes, Steve, he was our IT guy up there. He's at all of our clients ready should they need it, and he's not an advisor, but you have the whole entire team to support. And whether you're with Allman or you're with somebody else, it's important to have a network of relationships around you, so you can give yourself permission of not understanding or not knowing something, but know who to call. You don't have to have the answer, you just have to know who to contact. And that's really important, to have that kind of support structure around you.
Actually, I have an opposite story. So I had a client, this was during the pandemic, and they bought something that they got in the mail, and they took their money, and then the product never showed up for weeks. And they called me up and said, Andrew, I think I got scammed. And I looked into it, and it was just a small company, probably a one-person operation, who sold way more product than they ever expected to, and they were just super backed up. And we were able to call, get things negotiated, and everything was fine. So that's exactly, we're here, even if it turns out to be nothing, we're still here. We're here to help.
All right, well, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, JGUA College. Thank you, attendees. Thank you, the support staff in the back. They're the real rock stars. You can send your checks to them. Paper checks, please. They will also take cash. Anything like that. Yeah, gift cards, crypto, all that, the normal stuff. We'll just go right down the list. Just some heads up with some upcoming events. We have a presentation coming up by yours truly, actually, Jason, on February 16th. He's going to be speaking on a series that he writes a bunch of articles for the C-Suite publication, and he recently wrote one, Your New Year's Resolutions Setting You Up to Fail. So a nice little thoughtful presentation there. That's on February 16th. We have another presentation coming up March 2nd. That's going to be held at our headquarters in Big Flats. That's an after hours event where we're going to be hosting a live podcast. This cat right here actually runs our firm's podcast. It's called, well, Andrew, what's it called?
Well, it depends.
Well, it depends. There it is, right from the horse's mouth. So we're going to have a live podcast with some live audiences, and yeah, look that up. Follow us online so we can inform you of upcoming events. Amelia is going to share a couple of links real quick. The survey online. You could go ahead and complete that before we close this meeting. Your feedback is so important. It's the only way we can make this experience better, and we can learn forward every time. She's also shared an e-booklet. Inside that booklet, it's a bunch of content, upcoming events, a little bit about our firm, contact information, all sorts of goodies in there. His podcast, his presentation, there's lots of good things in there. And feel free, that is a shareable thing. So, maybe it's not for you, but maybe somebody that can benefit from the information. It's free, we're here to help. And thank everybody for coming.